Hey, Vsauce, Neckbeard here, and I'm here to rant about a movie. Oh, fuck. Alright, let's just restart. To the review. I got my shit written down so that I can remember. Alright, so I've got a couple points here, then we'll go through them, right? You ready? You ready? Are we ready? I'm ready. Characters are dry as fuck. So when you think of a movie, you think of characters, because how else are you gonna fucking make a movie? No characters? But in normal movies, characters have, you know, passions and shit like that, right? But in this movie, you know, they were just copying the passions of the anime. So they didn't really, you know, hold the passion from the anime. They just felt like, okay, so this is this character's you know, this is this character's reason for living. Okay, let's just hook it up to this plot line. And you know, that makes sense because, you know, it made sense in the anime, so why not? And then you realize that in the anime it was, you know, 10 episodes of character development, and in the movie they try and do it in like 5 minutes, and it's a sack of shit. So my third point is the CGI in the movie. Like, I realize that it's kind of shitty to nitpick CGI when some quite good movies are pretty shitty CGI, but really though, if your CGI isn't good, then it's kind of bad, because if you're going for an anime adaptation, you have to kind of have good CGI, because a lot of the things in anime... Oh, Jesus Christ, the demons! Fucking, you're trying to adapt something where a lot of things in anime will never exist in real life. We all fucking know it. So, but when you make a live action rendition, you want to make things look real. You want to bring them to life. They didn't do that in this movie, by the way. The only character that I do believe that they brought to life was Alphonse, the giant suit of armor. Because, you know, he's a giant suit of armor. And the animation for that, I don't know why, that was the only good CGI in the fucking movie. Everything else was pretty bad. It was amazing, actually, how the only thing that they got right was Alphonse, and then the rest of it was just a shit pile. And I don't understand how they fucked it up that badly, because at the beginning there was Alphonse, and his animation was really good, and then at the end of the movie they have the white dudes, whatever, it's spoilers, but they have white dudes, and they drop from the ceiling, and they just... Oh god, they look so bad. It gave me nightmares for a couple days. So, that's my point. CGI, it's terrible. And, you know, bringing characters to life on live action, they just didn't care. They were just like, alright, let's take exactly what it looks like in the anime and put it into a CGI render in the movie. And then they're like, oh, this is perfect. It looks beautiful. And it really didn't. So, the next thing is a character called Tucker. Now, I realize that this might be following the plot of the first anime that came out, because there's been 2 animes that came out, fullmetal alchemist and fullmetal alchemist brotherhood, and I can't remember fullmetal alchemist. I can only remember fullmetal alchemist brotherhood. So I don't really remember the plot. I don't remember how important Tucker is, but I remember that he wasn't important that much in fucking FMA Brotherhood, because he, like, just disappeared after a couple episodes after he did his shit show. And then in the movie, they just kind of brought him back and was like, hey, he's a super important villain to do the thing, you know, he's part of these dudes. Fuck it, who even gives a shit? The next thing on the list is that the setting were bad. What I mean by the settings are bad is that in the anime everything had an aesthetic, right? In the movie they obviously tried to replicate that aesthetic, but everything just ended up kind of looking like everything was amped up in saturation, which is probably what they did, but everything was amped up in saturation, and it just looked like they were in Italy and then never left Italy, and then at one point went to a warehouse in Britain, I'm assuming. I don't know, it didn't look good. Like, if you're gonna make a movie, you can't just, like, if you copy things immediately from the anime, it's not gonna look as good, because there's real life and then there's anime, and in anime shit doesn't look the same as real life. Just get fucking used to it. Shit looks different. You can't argue against that. Fuck. Right. Characters were bad. Now, I know I've already said that the characters were bland. You know, the acting was bad. But at the same time, the characters were missing traits that they had in the anime and shit like that. Like, if I was to watch this movie just without no knowledge of the anime, I would hate it. Like, it's just a shit movie. It's just not very good. But since it has an anime that's come before it, it can kind of stand, because it didn't really need to explain what characters were like, because, you know, there's an anime that they can just there's an anime that they can just fucking be like, oh, you know, they're like that in the anime, you know? There's just characters in the anime, We don't have to explain their bullshit. Like, there was an entire plot in the anime about a character, Roy Mustang, and, you know, his military days. They brought it up in the movie once. They were like, oh, yes, the war. And then for the rest of the movie, they just didn't give a shit. And so, it just ended up feeling shitty. But it just tries to stand on what it's not, because it's just, I don't know, it just felt like it was trying too hard to be just a addition of the anime, which, I mean, technically it is, but it's an adaptation, meaning that you redo it. You don't just be like, oh, okay, well, the characters are like this and everyone knows it, so fuck it. And that just ends the movie feeling bad and sad, because it just feels empty and shitty. Whatever, that's my point. Characters removed. Winry's not a fucking badass anymore for some reason. Stupid. Last thing on my list. This isn't a very big deal for a lot of movies, but at the same time it is, because it's the soundtrack. The soundtrack, in my opinion, wasn't good. So, like, I realized that the anime probably didn't have that good of a soundtrack, because I can't remember it. But the movie at the same time also had a terrible soundtrack. So I found it hard to kind of get into scenes without, you know, a flow of good tunes to get me in there. It just kind of felt stereotypical and boring. That's what I feel like the entire movie is. I just summed it up. Like, I've been trying to find a way to sum it up. And the way to sum it up is that it's stereotypical and boring. It just takes an idea that has already happened, right? And then bring it to life, as a couple people wanted. Probably not everyone, because nobody really likes live action anymore. Especially for anime. But, like, live action adaptations. People still watch live action movies. Fuck. But, like, I think they were lazy with it. They were just like, oh yeah, you know, let's ride off of the anime, and you know, only people who know the anime will watch this movie, which is true. But at the same time, you still have to make a movie. You can't just be like, here's some scenes from the anime that were cool, let's put them in the movie, make them live action. They were cool scenes, but then the rest of the movie just kind of follows along, and it does like this kind of, like, I don't know, there's like tight knots, and then through to the next knot, they're like falling apart because the other parts are just kind of boring and they don't really do anything, and then they lead up to this, well, not even lead up, they just kind of have it, but then they lead up to like this scene, and it's cool, but at the same time, make a fucking movie. Like, you just made scenes and then built around them, if that's what it feels like. Whatever the fuck that was. But that's my rant. If you didn't like it, well, flag my video for demonetization. I'm just kidding, I don't make money. I just want to shit on the ground. Quick sponsor. This video is sponsored by Sassmaster on redbubble.com. I'll put a link in the description. Go buy her art. It's amazing. Thank you for watching and putting up with this Pikachu hat because my hair doesn't look good. I'll see you on the down low. See you guys later.